Hello and welcome back to the Punctures Chance YouTube channel, where today we'll be obviously discussing about Johnny Fisher and Dave Allen, and also previewing Josh Taylor and Ekow Essuman this weekend. As you can see, Sam Hill is not with us today, and let's be honest, Ben, it's a little bit of a pain, isn't it? Because we've had to set up the entire studio by ourselves, with no help from Sam really. But yeah, an interesting card on Saturday night with Dave Allen and Johnny Fisher, and in the way it played out, and you know, in the aftermath of it all, I thought it was expected, wasn't it? You know, Dave Allen was gonna stop Johnny Fisher, and a lot of people predicted that in December. But you know, I didn't really want to believe it because I'm a big fan of Johnny Fisher. But yeah, that stoppage by Dave Allen, when you look back at it and you look back at all the build up and all the talk, it was kind of expected, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Dave Allen was confident, and I think he learned from the first fight that he had Johnny Fisher's number. I think it's one of those fights in there that you like both men, so you don't want to see either man lose. But there was quite a conclusive ending to it, even though Fisher had got the win. Technically, on the first one, I think he was beaten over the two fights. But I think more than anything, the takeaway I had from it was looking at Dave Allen's performances, especially over these two fights, is what would we have seen from Dave Allen if he had applied himself throughout his career, maybe as much as he'd applied himself to these two fights. And it'll also be interesting to see now if he can maintain that hunger in the ring for his future fights and see where he goes down the road, because I don't think there's a need for a trilogy, even though it's contracted, or certainly not next anyway. I think you could do it further down the line. You give Fisher the opportunity to take a step back and sort of learn from this fight, get a bit of experience elsewhere, maybe go for something like an English title or something like that, and build back up towards British level. But personally for me, I'd love to see Dave Allen and maybe Fraser Clark next, something like a proper British title fight. Obviously you've got Jimmy TKV and David Adley coming up in a rematch, but maybe you could have Allen and Clark face off, and then they get the winner for a British title, I think. And
interestingly, that would be a rematch as well, wouldn't it? Because they've already fought, and I don't want to sound rude when I say this, but Dave Allen, if I remember rightly, in one of the rounds, he just decided, I don't want any more of this, and it wasn't the best of watches. But yeah, like you said, Dave Allen boxed, in my opinion, on the weekend. He knew what was coming, and he knew that he was going to stop Johnny Fisher, and that work to the body and then that left hook to send Fisher to knock him out was just incredible. And I think now for Dave Allen, I like his honesty at the end of the night as well, saying that he's just a top level British fighter. He's not exceeding that, and I like that from him. And there's so many good fights out there. The Clark fight, for me, the Dillian Whyte fight is an interesting one. I think Dillian Whyte's fighting on the Fabio Wardley undercard, fingers crossed, against Lawrence Okoli. But going back to Fisher, obviously the first fight, there was a lot of controversy around it. Was it the right decision for Fisher to take the rematch so quickly? I know December to May isn't quickly, but the turnaround of, you know what, we're going to take a step back from that because we were lucky in Riyadh, and we're going to build him up again and potentially fight Dave Allen further down the line? Or do you think the mindset of Eddie Hearn and Mark Tibbs and all of them was, no, we're going to go straight back in there and we're going to prove all these doubters wrong?
Yeah, I think it's easy to say in hindsight, obviously knowing now that he'd been stopped, that you could say, yeah, it was probably a stupid idea. But I think it needed to happen in a way. You know, we've seen with the likes of Ben Whittaker and Liam Cameron, when we've got controversy around the first fight and how it ended, sometimes fans and fighters are not going to let that go. And I think Fisher wanted to prove to himself, and I think he did believe that he could get the better of Dave Allen, and he wanted to prove that to everyone else, that it wasn't just a fluke win out in Saudi Arabia. But obviously I think Saturday night showed the different levels, and I think it was just a case of Fisher maybe just showing him a bit too much respect. He obviously had the game plan to fight on the back foot, but I think he done it a bit too much. And
he's not a back foot fighter,
when you've got such a big frame like that, it doesn't take many rounds to empty a gas tank, especially when you've got someone as experienced as Dave Allen. I don't think he was necessarily doing a lot, but he was making Fisher work hard just to keep in the rounds, and he was nicking the rounds, but they were very close. And I think Dave Allen just knew, with his experience, how to just make him empty that gas tank. And once, I think at the end of the fourth round, you could see Fisher was really blowing, really struggling to keep on the back foot. I think it would have benefited him to maybe stand. It's a dangerous game, but stand and trade a bit more, just to keep Dave Allen a bit honest and keep himself on his toes. But yeah, I think Allen just wasn't worried about what was coming back, and I think he knew eventually he'd break him down, wear him down. But Fisher come again, he's got great support like we've seen on Saturday night. Like, they are going to keep coming out to watch him regardless, I think, of where he's at and who he's fighting. So I think it's just taking a step back now. You look at him as well, like I seen he put a clip out this morning or maybe yesterday of the first time he was hitting pads, and it was at 19 years old in university. Like, if you probably said to him then that first time he just stepped into that gym just to train with his mate, that a few years later he'd be headlining at the Copper Box, one of the most iconic boxing venues in the country, I'm sure he would have taken that. And even though Saturday night is very disappointing for him and the way it ended, it's a learning curve, and I think we'll see him in more big fights in the future. It's just probably he's learned where his level's at now, I think, from Saturday night.
And do you think that's a little bit tough, knowing that, we all knew that probably Johnny Fisher, and there's no disrespect, he was never going to be a world champion. But do you think now him finding out that he's probably just British level, in a way, Eddie Hearn now can build him back up and give him sort of fights on the undercard instead of giving him that pressure of main eventing? Because let's not forget, he's still a young heavyweight boxer. In terms, he's still a prospect. And taking a fight against Dave Allen, we all know Dave Allen. We all know the fights he's had in the past. This man's taken Dillian Whyte the distance. He's fought Luis Ortiz. Those two fights back to back. You've got to take hat off to him for fighting Dave Allen. And yeah, it's just, for Fisher now, it's all about getting his confidence back. And you saw the video, of course, afterwards, very emotional video the Matchroom posted out, which, part of me was thinking, why have they posted this? There was no need to do it. And then on the other hand, you look at Dave Allen, he's like, I can't believe it. I've won my first title. Shout out to Pat Brown as well, because his back must have been killing after that. Whose idea was it to put him on his shoulders? But no, I think we talk about, in this country, we get a lot of good British clashes. And that, again, we were kind of expecting a 10-round war, because we didn't know what sort of Dave Allen was going to turn up. We looked at the weigh-ins. Dave Allen came in heavy. And then it just, in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, this isn't going past 6 rounds, no matter what. If Dave Allen will get the stoppage, or Johnny Fisher will. But like I said at the start, it played out as I expected, with the experience, and in a way, Dave Allen old-manned him, didn't he? Dave Allen was just boxing and wasn't taking a lot of punishment, and he knew his time was coming. Another fighter that's got hopefully a long career ahead of him, George Liddard, an incredible performance against Aaron Sutton. Great. I'm trying to think, it was 3 knockdowns in that fight, the first round, second round, and then great corner work by Chris Sanagar to take him out of there and save him from another day. Talking about prospects, George Liddard, he's someone for the future, isn't he?
Yeah, I think looking through the card, not just Liddard, you got Sains and Taylor Bevan as well. I think they all picked up, it was 2 stoppage victories, and Sains, that's the first time he hasn't picked up a stoppage win, but it's the first title of his career as well. So we've said over the last few Matchroom shows, when you see, it seems to be that trio all the time, and whether they're on the same show or they've just been spread across multiple shows, Matchroom have got a nice little trio between George Liddard, Jimmy Sains and Taylor Bevan of very top prospects. So I think all 3 of them more than likely go beyond British level compared to obviously what we've seen in the main event. But yeah, really impressive from all 3 of them. Liddard obviously to stop Sutton. I've seen Sutton live. I've seen him fight down in Cardiff. I know he's a very skilled, talented fighter. He's only lost the once, I think it was to Jerome Overton, who obviously was on this card as well. So yes, a very impressive win for Liddard. Sains as well, picking up his first title, and Taylor Bevan, I'm just excited to watch every time, especially being a Welshman as well. I think it's always nice to see these Welsh talents breaking through, and Eddie Hearn named him as one for the future for a world title, and I think that's definitely the case with him.
And I love his fan base as well. I don't know if you saw, but there was a drone shot when the main card came on, and there's Fisher fans arriving and Taylor Bevan fans leaving. And it's unbelievable. Great performance by him. Another fighter on the card, Kieran Conway, Jerome Warburton. A little bit disappointing for us Welsh fans that Jerome Warburton couldn't become the first ever North Walian to pick up the British title. But Kieran Conway, again, solid performance. And he's another one now where he's won that British title. Obviously had a great performance against Ryan Kelly last time out as well. Great fight in Birmingham, that was. George Liddard is someone that called him out after his fight. Do you think that's a potential fight down the road? Or do you reckon that could be next for Liddard, Conway?
I think that looks like the next fight, because the Liddard-Aaron Sutton fight was, I think, a British title eliminator, so you got Conway and Liddard there fighting for a middleweight British title. I think it'd be a very good fight. Don't know, like, it'll be probably some people throw in at Liddard maybe a tad too early, but he's looked very good every time I've watched him. Obviously 11-0 now against someone in Kieran Conway who's been around the block now for quite a while. He's got the added experience, but it'll be interesting to see. It'll be his first defence of that title. He looked very good, I thought, against Warburton. Warburton, we've seen before, is a tough fighter, so to get him out of there within 4 rounds I thought was very impressive. I didn't expect it to be over as quick as it was. I think I had Conway edging a decision, because I've seen Warburton before and he is tough, and you know at British title level it can be anyone's night sometimes, but Conway and Liddard I think is a very good fight, and potential headliner for a Matchroom show in the future, or if not a headliner, it's certainly going to be high up in the card. It'd be a great fight to watch, I think.
It'd be interesting to see where they do that as well, because obviously George Liddard's an Essex boy as well. They could do that at the Copper Box. Conway's Northampton, so I don't think there's any big arenas around Northampton. Potentially another stadium fight, we've got so many stadium fights coming up. But for our Welsh listeners, I thought, because me and you are doing this podcast alone, I thought I'd change it up a little bit. I've got a little bit of a quiz. I don't know if you know him, but Warburton is now the 3rd man from North Wales to fight for a British title. Can you name the other 2? It was in the Boxing News magazine, so there's a clue for you guys at home. If you put it down in the comment section, we'll do something for you. We'll shout you out in the next episode or something when Sam's back with us and it's a lot more professionally run. But there's some other talking points in the world of boxing. Aside from that, obviously, disappointing defeat for Johnny Fisher. Turki Alalshikh has confirmed that Salah for Riyadh season will be the promoter of Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford's undisputed bout, September 13th. Still not a location for it. Apparently there's rumours of it being in Las Vegas, New York, LA. I'd love for it to be in a massive stadium, Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. Obviously, me and you are big wrestling fans. We saw WrestleMania there. That would be incredible. But it's interesting to see that TKO's come into boxing. There was talks about TKO promoting this card. Now they're not. Where does sort of Dana White come into boxing now? Is it 2026, in your opinion?
I don't know. It's interesting, because I really thought this first fight was going to be, the first fight that he'd promote, but I think it falls with the new date. I think September 13th falls on the same night as a UFC event as well, so it looks like he's not going to be involved in this one. I think, there's always going to be, I suppose, rumours thrown about that maybe he's already fallen out with Turki, or Turki's changed his plans of where he wants to go, but I think we just got to wait and see. And they've obviously they've had discussions, they've had plans somewhere, and I've no doubt that Dana White will have a big impact somewhere down the line eventually, because we've seen, not that I watch a lot of UFC, but we've seen how massive that's become and how much he's grown it. So I suppose for boxing fans, it's great in a way to have these new characters coming into the sport, because we're going to see bigger and better fights like this one that we've always wanted to see. Over the last few years, we have been spoiled, as we keep saying, but we're not going to say no to these big fights, or the more that they throw at us, the better. But yeah, interesting he's not going to be involved, but I don't think it'll be too long before we see a TKO card, and more than likely, possibly that connection with Netflix as well probably will link up somewhere and we'll see a big fight. But with Crawford and Canelo, I think it'll be in America somewhere. I think they'll use our American audience to try and sell the ticket, so I can see it being out there, I think.
And, I think it's a great fight. And when it was first announced, there was a lot of talk about, oh, come on now, there's weight categories for a reason. But I think the closer we're getting to it, obviously September 13th is meant to be the date. I believe it's a Saturday night, it could be a Friday night. For me, it's a close fight, isn't it? It's a 50-50 kind of. But does the weight, the weight advantage that Canelo has over Crawford, would that be sort of an indicator of who could win it?
I think it was more of a talking point before Canelo's last fight.
Yeah, well, we don't talk about Canelo's last fight, do we? Otherwise we'll fall asleep.
But the two things I think you may have to look at is, obviously with that last fight, I don't know if you can take an awful lot from it, because I don't think Skull was there to win. I didn't feel like, I think it felt more like he was just happy to get through the 12 rounds, so I don't know if it was a true sort of testament of where Canelo's at the moment. But we do know he's probably in the latter stages of his career, so it could be a case of Crawford's catching him at the right time. And also the fact that we haven't seen Crawford in the ring for
maybe over a year when they actually step in the ring, yeah.
And I think that can work one of two ways. We've seen it either inactivity will play his part and he'll struggle against Canelo, or it's given him enough time to build up to feel a bit more natural at that weight class and allow him to feel more comfortable in it, to the point where that weight disparity probably won't matter as much, and then it'll just come down to who's the better boxer. And when you look at the skill of the two, it's close. It's going to be a close fight if Crawford is comfortable at that weight class, but got a few more months to wait for it. But I'll be very excited when it rolls round, and it'll be, I think, we've been spoiled already this year, but in terms of what we're going to have this year, could possibly top the biggest fight that we'll get in 2025.
But if AJ and Fury doesn't get made, they're also putting sort of teasers out, aren't they? Tyson Fury and John Fury, I think we're at an airport flying off for a meeting, but that's for the future. This weekend, a massive card up in Scotland, up in Glasgow. The return of Josh Taylor. It seems like ages since he was last in the ring, and before we filmed this podcast, I was actually looking at the last time he sort of won a fight, and it was May 2021. I'm obviously not counting that first fight with Jack Catterall, because I think everyone that watched that fight had Catterall winning by a significant margin. But no, it's good to see Josh Taylor back out in action against Ekow Essuman, the Engine. We know a lot about Essuman. Big fan of the podcast, I would say, as well. Any time we sort of tag him in any of our posts, he does repost, so shout out to you, Ekow. It's a great fight, and it's the sort of fight that I think is going under the radar a little bit, because Essuman, he's a very durable fighter, a very technical fighter as well. And on the flip side of that, with Josh Taylor, he's, former undisputed champion, for God's sake. But how much has he got left? And can Ekow Essuman exploit that? And you talked about them with Crawford not having a lot of activity in the last year or so. Josh Taylor could fall under that bracket as well. It's going to be a great fight in Glasgow, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and I think it feels to me it's got flashbacks to a fight we were talking about a few weeks ago, Callum Smith and Josh Boatsy.
Yeah.
Where it was like, how much has Callum Smith got left was the issue.
And he shut us all up then, didn't he?
And it could be the same case this weekend, but Ekow Essuman, I love watching Ekow Essuman. That one fight with Owen Cooper was one of the best fights we watched. Was that last year?
Yeah,
last year. Yeah. And I think it's a brilliant fight, a really good main event fight. Obviously in Glasgow as well, going to be a great crowd. I think it'll be packed out in it. And like you said, it is a case of Josh Taylor obviously moving up to welterweight as well, showing how much has he got left, and can he still compete at world level, because I think a loss on Saturday pretty much derails any hope of getting to that point, and a win for Essuman really, pushes him up amongst the likes of Jack Catterall and others that are knocking on that door, maybe at world level then, but a great fight and some good fights on the undercard as well, including one of the, I think, the must-watch fighter in
I
the
thought you
heavyweight
were going to
division.
say the future of the heavyweight division.
Well, he is the future of the heavyweight division, I think.
Yeah, when was the last time Moses Itauma was out? Because it doesn't... I want to say it was December time, wasn't it? He was on the Fury undercard.
Yeah,
it's the
Dempsey McKean. The thing with Moses Itauma, you look at that fight against Maris Vac, that was a 10-rounder, and a lot of people were saying, yeah, Vac's going to give him a real test here, and we're going to see, we're finally going to see Itauma go over the distance. And since then, he's had... That was a second round stoppage, and then he's had a first round stoppage. No one's... you're putting people up against him that's going to try and give him rounds, but no one's giving him them. He's easily breezing past them, and obviously there's talks now, and can I just say I expect exactly the same on Saturday night, and I think there's this fight, it's like a stepping stone fight for the summer, where there's a big talks about him and Martin Bakole happening. Obviously Martin Bakole coming off that draw against F.A. Jagba on that fantastic weekend of boxing we had at the beginning of May that we don't want to talk about anymore. That's a great fight. That'll be a massive learning fight for Itauma. I expect him to get through Mike Balogun on the weekend in sensational fashion. 21-1, he is from America. For Itauma now, you can look at this fight in two ways. Does he want to get the rounds in, just in case Bakole's next? Or is Bakole going to be in August and he just wants to get it out there, show people again why he is the future of the heavyweight division, and get an early stoppage and then get straight back into camp and get the Bakole fight? And it's a bit, for some fighters now, it's going a bit too early, but the last two performances of Bakole, I do fancy Itauma's chances in that fight.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, the WAC fight and the Dempsey McKean fight were both meant to be sort of testers for where he was at. Dempsey McKean took Hrgovic, as we said, 12 rounds, so he's no slouch, and Itauma just bowled through him in that. I think he knocked him down twice, got the first round stoppage, and honestly I can see, without giving away, gonna give away the predictions pretty much for this weekend.
I think we both know what we're going with.
I think Itauma, as much as it's nice to get those rounds in, I think especially a heavyweight, if you can get out of there nice and early and not do the overtime, then I think they're gonna take her. And I think Itauma will do the same this weekend against Balogun. And if he was to step in against Bakole, obviously Bakole's got the experience, probably the size on Itauma, but he doesn't look or feel like a heavyweight to me. Sometimes when you watch him, he's so fast and light on his feet. He's like, I just think he could cause Bakole all sorts of issues where Bakole just won't be able to get near him to cause him a problem. So I could see Itauma winning against Bakole already if they were planning to get it on at the end of this year maybe. But I know we have the thing of overhyping these fighters, especially when they're young, but you just look at Itauma, I just think he's a special breed of fighter. He's been training and sparring with Bakole, with Fury, Joshua, he's been in there with the best of the best, and he's got confidence from and feels comfortable enough that he can jump in there now and compete with them. I'm not saying he's going to win against all these fighters because it's a top level of the sport, but when someone that young is feeling that confident coming up against these fighters and performing the way he is, I don't see how he can't reach the pinnacle of the sport.
So you're saying you get through this on Saturday night, Martin Bakole next. I'm trying to think of dates. Might be a little bit too soon, but the Usyk Dubois undercard, do you reckon he could get on that? Or I think there's a big card coming up in August that they could potentially put him on. But I think, Bakole next, and then after that, there was talks about him fighting, I want to say Kubrat Pulev as well. That would be a hell of a fight. But yeah, the heavyweight division at the moment, there's so many good fights happening, lots of 50-50 matches. That one, in a sense, will be built as a 50-50 matchup. You've got Fabio Wardley, Justice Hooney in a massive stadium fight. Talking about big stadium fights, the return of Terry Harper this weekend in Doncaster. What's the football stadium called in Doncaster? I'm not a big football fan. I'm testing your knowledge here. I was going to say the New York Stadium. That's Rotherham,
We'll have
isn't
to
it?
look it
Right,
up
we'll
there.
forget about that. But it's a big card in Doncaster, GBM. We were meant to be there covering it, but Sam's decided that he booked a holiday to Spain and Mallorca instead. On the undercard of that, I think is a great fight for this weekend, and a fight that I think everyone should be looking out for. Maxi Hughes versus Archie Sharp for the WBC silver lightweight belt. I think that's a proper fight, that is, and it's a sort of fight that you want in a stadium, isn't it? And I'm expecting it to be packed out there, and yeah, that's for me. Do we say the word because Sam is in here? Fight of the weekend, right there. Maxi Hughes, Archie Sharp. If it isn't, come back at me, obviously. But talking about stadium fights, that one on Doncaster is like the start of the season now for stadium fights. You got that. We're in Ipswich for one. Barnsley on the same night. You've got Wembley. And then you've got one over in America, Edgar Berlanga and Hamza Shiraz, and that fantastic card with obviously William Zepeda and Shakur Stevenson on. We're being spoiled at the moment, aren't we, as boxing fans?
Yeah, definitely spoilt, and it's nice to see these fighters, even just like you said this weekend with the Terry Harper fight, for him to get an opportunity like a GBM to win.
Yeah.
Great work. It's a busy weekend of fights. Obviously, starting with the Friday night, you got the Saturday night in Glasgow. I'm going to be at York Hall on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. They've got 2 nights of fights there with top tier and Nielsen shows as well. So boxing is in a great place at the moment. But really looking forward to. I'll be sat down to watch that GBM show Friday night and watching. Well, I'll be catching up mainly on the Glasgow card, but that main event I think is going to be a very good watch. And there's a lot of good fights on it as well. You've got the Nathaniel Collins fight as well.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of good fights happening this weekend. It's one of those weekends where you've got so much to speak about. You can't really give every fight probably the credit it deserves, but yeah, like you said, being spoilt as boxing fans at the moment.
Yeah, you're going to be up in York Hall for 2 nights, a Nielsen show and a top tier show. 2 Welshmen on that top tier show, I believe, Steve Davis and Angelo Dragoni. Good luck to them. But it's our favourite part of the week. Our predictions.
We don't have to worry about losing to Sam.
What card should we do? Well, we'll do it together because Sam isn't here, so we're cheating because, you know, this week doesn't really count because all 3 of us aren't together. Start us off, Ben, on the predictions.
What card are we going for?
For the Taylor Essuman card, I think that's probably the biggest card of the weekend.
You got Aston Brown and Rhys Porter first off. That's the Central Area Scottish fight.
Probably.
Both undefeated. I think it'll be a good fight between them two. You know, the Central Area fights, or no, they got the same sort of feel as like a British title fight today, but be a close one. But personally for me, I'll go for Aston Brown as a decision there.
Okay, well, I'm going to agree with Ben there. The other thing I wanted to point out as well with Queensbury, and we should have talked about that when we were talking about previewing the fight. Queensbury started very strong on DAZN, haven't they? With the sort of fight cards they're bringing out, and they've got coming up Dubois and Usyk and all that. And are we going to see better fight cards here in the UK? Because obviously over in Riyadh we've had unbelievable cards. You know, that fantastic card with Better Be Evan Bivol. Do you think with now Warren and Hearn on the same broadcaster, potentially Ben Shalom could be joining them next year with that, obviously with that Sky deal perhaps going? Surely that's going to mean better fight cards, more quality, not even at the top end of the card, but also below them as well.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of we'll see it more often because they won't clash now. They'll make sure they're on separate weekends. So I think it'll just be a case of us seeing more great cards like this one on a regular basis in the UK, which I think we needed as well. I think we didn't get probably as great of a year for boxing as 2024 was. One of the things I think UK fans felt like they were lacking were those sort of hometown shows, and I think we've got a lot more of them already this year, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more to look forward to. Like just this weekend is an example of how packed they can be when they do it right. We've got Friday, Saturday and Sunday full of shows, so I think it'd just be a case of seeing the same amount of quality, because they'd always near enough very good cards, but seeing them on a more regular basis I think is the main thing that we need.
Next fight then on the card, Ben?
Aloysius Yumby and David Jameson. Yumbi is 9. He's got he lost his pro debut in the Yumbi, but he's gone 9-0 since then. Jameson, I think he's obviously going to be more of a hometown favourite, being the Scottish.
Great
rider.
Experience for him, isn't it? There.
I think personally for me, I think Yumbi is going to carry on his unbeaten run. I'm going to go for Yumbi by points decision for mine.
Okay.
I probably should have grabbed my phone to put the decisions in, but
yeah, this fight's a decent one because obviously Alloy's, I want to say in his last fight was at the Wembley Arena against Lewis Oakford, and that was built as his like big test, and he went through that in flying colours, didn't he? This is the worst thing without having Sam here because normally I get time to think about my prediction. 33 years old, Jameson, 13-3. I think Alloys gets the stoppage. This fight. You know, I talked about Maxi Hughes and Archie Sharp potentially being a great fight to watch this weekend. I think this one's got the ingredients to maybe top that. Nathaniel Collins, Lee McGregor, featherweight, 10 rounds. Oh, right. This could be close. This is a tough call.
is it? I think that's one of the fights. Like I said earlier, probably there's so much
so evenly matched, mind.
Yeah, you can't give every fight probably the credit it deserves, but a WBC silver featherweight title on the line as well, so it's a big opportunity for whoever wins it, but I think Collins will keep his unbeaten streak going and go for Collins stoppage.
Collins stoppage. I'm going for a Lee McGregor points decision, so we're going different there. Now, Ben's favourite heavyweight boxer. He obviously hasn't said that out in public before. Moses Itauma against Mike Belongan. Heavyweights, 10 rounds. It won't go 10 rounds, I can guarantee that. Itauma will get an early stoppage yet again.
Yeah, I've got Itauma early stoppage as well. I think he'll win it within the first 4.
And interestingly, on the Boxer News app, which we do use, we haven't even shouted them out. Normally Sam shouts them out, so we forgot about that. Sorry. 97.58% of people have predicted Itauma by knockout. Now, the main event. Josh Taylor, Ekow Essuman. I'm leaning towards, when I was coming in this morning to the studio and I was thinking about this fight, I was thinking, this fight's very good. Very evenly matched. There's a lot of talk about what Josh Taylor's got left. How much desire has he got again? He's fighting in front of his home crowd, potentially for the last time, because he'd probably go over to the States again if he has any sort of world title hopes. I'm a big fan of the engine, Ekow Essuman. And I'm going to go an Essuman points decision win. I think I'm going to be different. Go against a home favourite, just to be, because there's not 3 of us here. Instead of going the same, I'll go Essuman. And what about you?
I was very close to going Ekow Essuman because I'm a big fan of Ekow Essuman and I love the way he fights, but I think it's a bit of... I'm trying to learn from the last time with the Callum Smith and Josh Barty fight. We said, has this fighter still got enough? So I think Josh Taylor is going to get it on a decision this weekend. That's what I'm going to go for. I think he'll win this and he'll have one last crack at a world title at welterweight.
I like your thinking there. Also, the podcast has got a new sponsor now, Boxing Fightzone. Thank you very much for sponsoring us. For great boxing clothes and accessories, go to boxingfightzone.com, and we've got a special discount code for our watchers and listeners. Use code PUNCHESCHANCE, all in capitals, and you can get 15% off your orders. I think that pretty much wraps up this episode. Obviously, hopefully next week Sam will be back with us and it'll be a little bit more smooth sailing, but I think we've done a good job.
Yeah, we haven't done too badly.
I hope you've enjoyed, and how does Sam normally end these sort of episodes? Should we just say thank you very much for listening?
He just waffles on.
Shout out, go and follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Ben is doing a lot of good stuff on TikTok. Sam also says that. What else? Blue Sky, Threads, we're on everywhere. LinkedIn, if you're that professional and want to follow us on there, give us a follow there. It's going to be a great weekend of fights, and I think that's all that's left to say is massive thank you for watching, and we'll catch you again very, very soon.
Punches chance. Punches Chance Podcast.